Dr. Jerry, you got the whole world waiting. Been ready for you to start the conversation. Your point of view, it got the haters confused. Leave it up to you to bring us all the good news. Positive vibes and the sex appeal too. Dr. Andre Jerry, can I get an interview?
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Live with Dr. Andre Jerry. So tonight we have a very special episode in store for you. For those of you who have been following the show over the years, you know that I've been fascinated by near-death experiences for the past couple of years or so. And tonight I'm excited because I get to explore one of the more remarkable accounts that I've come across. Tonight's conversation is called The Second Time Around. And it's about a man who says he was dead for approximately 24 hours and then came back. Before we talk about what my guest tonight believes he encountered beyond this physical life, I want you to consider the following questions. What do you believe happens when we die? And I don't mean, what you were taught to believe. What do you believe? What's the meaning of life, and why are we here? So if you've been giving thought to any of these types of questions before, you're definitely not alone. Many of us have been sort of pondering our existence and what happens to our loved ones when they leave this physical realm. But tonight's conversation isn't only about death. It's also about how we live. It's about love, purpose, spirituality, health, and what can happen when life gives us another chance. So do me a favor, if you know someone who needs to hear this conversation, by all means, send them the link to this show where they can listen live. Or if you're listening to the podcast version, then share this episode with a friend. All right, so my guest tonight is L.J. Martin. He's author of a fascinating book called The Second Time Around, a memoir of a life, a death, and a second chance. The Second Time Around, a memoir of a life, a death, and a second chance. So we're very glad to have him today. Jay, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you much for having me. I appreciate it. Very much humbled by it.
Oh, great. It's an honor to have you on with us. Jay, I remember reaching out to you, I guess it was a couple of months ago, right after watching your NDE story on YouTube. Mm-hmm. And I remember telling you how much I enjoyed your story, and we kind of kept in contact here and there, and I eventually invited you on the show as a guest, and then here we are today. So thanks so much again for, making the time to come on and share your story with us.
Of course, anytime.
All right, so because this is my audience's first introduction to you and to your story, I don't want to just start with your death and your near-death experience. I want to actually start with your life. So before everything changed and all of this stuff happened, who was L.J. Martin? Like, where did you grow up? What was your family like? And how was your life before all of this stuff happened?
Man, I would say that's almost a loaded question. I grew up on the south side of Chicago in Inglewood, the late 70s, up into my adulthood. Hopefully that didn't reveal my age. But where I grew up at, we had our share of, challenging times, and we had our share of, pretty much amazing times, with all the, crime and gangs and everything that was happening around there. I believe it was, it was the family unit that, pretty much kept me from cracking, which was very easy to do. When I was younger, I used to, we used to watch, MTV and things, and listen to the radio, like Shalimar, hip hop and stuff like that. And one day, we was listening to Melly Mel, Series 5, and breakdancing was the big thing. Tried to break dance, didn't work well with certain moves. Almost broke my neck. But by doing that, I found something that I liked, something that I loved. And I'm glad I did because, like I said before, everything that was happening around me, you needed something to keep you out of trouble. So as I was getting older, I would see things like in my neighborhood, some things that people would do, seeing how easy it is to get involved in gangs or involved in drugs or just walking down the street, somebody might want to jump you. That wasn't uncommon. But I turned to dancing to keep myself busy. And as I got older, we started, I joined a dance group, which ended up being my friends to this day. And we just started dancing at like local sock hops, the talent shows, variety shows. Like one of the variety shows we did was with Bernie Mac. It was before he got like really huge. He had like a variety show that he had like the Cotton Club. It was around 63rd. And we performed there, did pretty good. And we eventually graduated to things like concerts, opened it up for people like Redman, the Ghetto Boys, DJ Quick, things like that. And then one day we got wind that there was a contest by the Apollo Theater from New York, and they was looking for acts and everything, and it was hundreds, had to be hundreds, if not damn near thousands of people that was auditioning. So we auditioned. We got picked to go on the show, and we performed at, I believe it was the Air Crown Theater in Chicago. Right before we was going on, one of my guys was like, he was like, man, Jesus ain't his name. We was like, what? He was like, that ain't his name, because we always pray before we performed and everything. But as he said it, we was like, all right, man, let's just get this show, get it done. We did our show. We won, won a trip to the Apollo Theater in New York City, in Harlem. We were contestants on there twice. And when we got back to our regular lives, back in Chicago, we kind of took him up on that comment that he said about spirituality, about the Creator and everything. And we started studying. We started studying about who we were, where we come from, because we all had that dying question in the back of our head, like our parents go to church so freaking much. How come our lives haven't changed? So we started practicing. Not practicing, but we started going to these connections, to these meetings often, learning more and everything. And the more we started learning, I would say the more zealous we got, because we would get kicked out of churches and stuff like that, where you run people down, telling them that what they're doing ain't right and everything. And it didn't always go well. But I held on to my faith. It got me more strong with my spirituality. It got me more, I want to say, connected and wanting to know more about who I was and my goal on this earth, on this planet. It was a challenge, like I said, for the most part, because again, you were surrounded by everything that's going on around you, so much temptation, so much badness or whatever you want to call it, that it was right there in your face and you trying to get right, but it was just so tempting. And it got to a point to where everybody just disbanded. Everybody disappeared into their own little world. I mean, we're still friends to this day, but started having families and everything. And I had my first child, my daughter. And when I had her and everybody was doing their own thing, the mother of my children wanted to move to Columbus, Ohio. I was against it at first because I had never left my family. I never left the city like that, So we moved here to Columbus, Ohio. But by that time, we had like 3 kids. I had a hatchback Hyundai accent. We moved up here. I had to stay with her family until we got on our feet. And it seemed as if as soon as I landed, as soon as I got here, things just started taking a turn, because it was it was a small town, much different from Chicago. and I didn't know how to navigate. You know, it was like everything just started happening that year. I think that same year, it was like 2001, 2002, or 2001. We had Aaliyah. You know, Aaliyah passed away on the airplane. Right. And I felt some kind of way because when I was dancing, I auditioned for to be one of her backup dancers. Funny story is I got called back, you know, after my audition, but one of my guys at the time, he picked up the phone to act like he was me and went down there and he pretty much bombed the second audition, but I forgave him for that. But she had passed away, and then we had 9/11, you know, happen, and it was just chaos. Again, I didn't know where I was, in a different place, different environment, people passing away everywhere, and my only concern was taking care of my family and getting us together. Again, because we were in a small place, I didn't know where to look for a job. I tried anywhere, you know, to find something. And even though I had my faith, my main priority was to take care of my family, you know. But after we moved from her family's house probably like I want to say 12 to 13 months or something like that after we got there, got our own place, and it just seems like things just sort of went further downhill. But I stayed optimistic that things would get better, but it kind of went further to me. One day we were in our apartment. We got a call from, it was at the evening. We got a call from my dad that my grandmother had passed. I mean, she wasn't doing good. I talked to her, and I would say I think it was like a couple hours later. It was either a couple hours later or the next day, but it was very soon. I'm sorry if I don't remember the exact time. But he called me back and said she didn't make it. So I went back to bury my grandmother, came back here after burying her. My relationship had just fizzled with the mother of my kids one evening, and it was the evening time. I go in my room, and then I get a call from my cousin, not even a year later, telling me that one of my first cousins was just killed. That hit me some kind of way because I had just told him that I was going to come back to see him the next time I come out there because I had missed him. Went out there to bury him. We were pregnant with our fourth child, and I didn't have time to grieve too much because it was more of you got to provide for your family. You're in a strange place. Take care of your family. Take care of your family. So I did that, but the issues didn't stop. You know, they didn't stop. Am I going too much?
No. I was listening, and it just seems like everything was going relatively okay, and then started going to hell once you got to Columbus, Ohio.
Oh, yeah. And I don't blame Columbus, but it's just ironic, you know. I would think this was the time where my faith was getting tested. You know, this was the time where the Creator was, I guess, making me, like, pay attention more because it seemed as if after we buried him, I ended up getting a job. I ended up going to work back for Coca-Cola because I worked for Coke prior in Illinois. So I ended up going to work back for Coca-Cola. And I went back to Coca-Cola. We had to have like checkups, make sure everybody was good, to have those random checkups, the job. So I had to do one. And then this was like 2005. Come to find out, I was diagnosed with lupus. I wasn't sure what lupus was. I had to look it up, but I just took it at, oh well. Again, back to work, take care of my family, workaholic. So I just kept going, and then it seems like then we had another death in the family, and went to bury them. Come back, got to get back to work. Then I got diagnosed with severe depression and then severe anxiety, and then again seemed like it was more another death in the family. Then there was another death in the family, and it was like back to back. And I it's not to sound mean, but it was my family that I had to give all my attention to as far as my children. I had to work. So as I'm going, still, taking everything is, I want to say good, but the deaths in the family it's not really a good thing.
Of course.
But as we go, I would say around 2000, I want to say 12-ish, I did a checkup. I was going to get my checkup at the doctor, and the doctor came back and found out that I had pulmonary embolism, a blood clot in my lung. And I was like, okay, it's like, all right. She said, if you don't got to take this medicine, if you don't take this medicine, it could be fatal. I was saying, fatal, okay, point taken. Went back to work, minding my business. Again, another death. And then there was another death. And it just wouldn't stop, and I'm like, I'm a good person. Why is all these things happening to me? I still stayed optimistic that things would get better, even in the face of everything that was happening. I still preached love, always was kind to people. I never liked to burn bridges. I just tried to show that I was strong at the same time where everything was happening, and I didn't
take any time to grieve any of these deaths, really?
None. No time, I should have, but I didn't. I got caught up in work. I was a workaholic, and people would say, Jay, slow down, man. You can't take care of your family if you're not here. I'm like, yeah, but I got to take care of them, and I had just bought a house, and because I wanted a spot for my kids to call their own, 4-bedroom home. I had a backyard, a deck, my own garden. I thought everything was going good, but at the same time, ignoring my body, working. I mean, like I would work from 6:30. I would work from like 6:30 a.m. to like 3:30 p.m. And then if you got drafted, I would work from 6:30 a.m. to 3:30 p.m., go home, come back in at 6 p.m., get back home at 6 a.m., and I would do those often just so I can keep up with things, It was to the point to where everything was climbing down on me to where I started to lose weight. It was hard to eat sometimes because like every dollar I got was either trying to keep a roof over my head or feeding the kids, to the point to where I would just scavenge through the couch looking for change just to see if I can have enough change to get at least an apple, while I'm working, and it was rough. It was rough, but I kept going. I kept going despite, I did my checkups every year, and that's why I implore every person, especially males, to get a checkup at least once a year. Go see your doctors. It is very important that you do that. 2015, I went for another checkup, find out that I had angina. Angina is like a heart condition. I think the heart muscles weaken.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, and then found out that I had not just one pulmonary embolism, I had another pulmonary embolism. Not knowing where they was coming from, wasn't worried about it, but I was losing weight. I was sick to the point to where I'll go because I was a technician at Coke, I would go into a restaurant, and while I'm working, I'm sweating, and I'm barely making it, and I'm dragging. I'll go outside, get ready to go, and I'm waiting in my car to where I had like owners of these restaurants would come out like, man, are you okay? You don't look good, But I was still just shrugging it off. Oh, I'll be okay. I'm not doing too well, but I'll be okay. Still had the optimism, but it didn't serve me. It did not serve me. But I just kept going. I needed something to hold me, to keep me together during everything, to the point where I would read books while I was at work for like on lunch break or something. I would, grab a book. And I found out about a book called Autobiography of a Yogi. Yeah. I don't know if you heard that book before.
I hadn't heard of it until I heard you mention it on another interview.
Yeah, it was by a man from India, Paramahansa Yogananda. And one of the Beatles, I think it was Ringo Starr or George Harrison, they would always give this book to everyone who came over his house, always give it to him. So I decided to get the book, and it was about his life, and the things that he'd been through, and about meditation. And because of that book, I started taking up meditation. It was hard at first to sit and meditate because you had so much going on through your head, to where it's like I would sit for like maybe 3 minutes, and I was like, okay, got to get up, Then it would graduate to like 5 minutes, and throughout the years, it would get up to, half an hour, sometimes a couple of hours. And it was what was keeping me, between my health and the deaths in the family and work. Meditation I would say it saved my life in more ways than one, and saved my insanity and saved some people from getting choked. So yeah,
Were you suffering in silence mostly as it relates to your illnesses, or did your family and your kids know what state you were in terms of your health and all the issues?
I was suffering in silence. I would say it was almost like a pride thing, because my mom would always tell me, she said, closed mouths don't get fed, and she was like, if you need something, let me know. I'm here. I'll help you. Let me know. And I wouldn't help because, I'm well, at the time I was 39 when it happened. I'm like, I'm an adult, with 4 kids. I got to take care of these kids myself. These are my kids. I got to do this. And nobody knew. Every time someone saw me, they see me smiling, or they'll see me in passing, again, smiling, and they would have never knew. A girl that I had just started dating in December of 2015, she noticed that, I already knew it, but she noticed that I was losing weight in more ways than one, and I didn't even tell her what was happening, and my family, I love them so much. I just kept it to myself. I had to make it look like I was okay. I had to make it look like I was strong, that I'm a man, I'm resilient, I can do this. And it didn't serve me the way I thought it was.
You were carrying a lot. And I mean, kudos to you for at least getting your checkups, because let's be honest, a lot of us black men, we don't mess with the doctor. I mean,
yeah.
We do not mess with the doctor. So for us to even make sure we get our checkups every year, that's, gold star for that. So at least you had a handle of that and had some awareness of some of the health issues that you were having. But man, you had a lot on your shoulders. You just kept driving and keep pushing yourself. How did, let's move toward like more so 2016 and how you end up driving yourself to the hospital and then collapsing. Take us through that time.
Well, in the end of 2015, like I said, I just started dating a girl, and she didn't know anything about it. And I would say February 2016, we started getting more serious. Again, I was working. I was a workaholic, and it was a lot of overtime that was made mandatory because I wasn't high on the totem pole at work. So it was a lot of overtime that I had to do, crazy hours, getting sicker and sicker. And I was a technician at this time at Coca-Cola. I started off as an installer, but for the last few years at that time, I became a technician. So I was the technician at that time. I was working at night. Well, at least I got off at night. I just came in from work. I would say, I think I was working till like, get home like maybe 10, 11 o'clock or something like that evening. I came in from work, got in the house, and I felt a funny feeling in my chest. It wasn't painful. It didn't hurt, but it felt weird, I proceeded to walk up my staircase, went in the kitchen, started to, get ready to turn down, and I proceeded to call my mom, my girlfriend, and my guy that I look at is like my brother, Malak. And as I'm talking to them, and I called them, and I'm in the kitchen calling them, and then next thing you know, I'm at the hospital. I wake up opening my eyes and seeing my mom and the doctor sitting there. Don't know how I got there, didn't have any concern or even wonder how. But apparently they said that, and this was like the evening of August 17th, 2016, when I got in from work. But they said like early, like after midnight on the 18th, they said I drove myself to the hospital, parked my car, and the hospital was only about 10 minutes away. So they said I drove myself to the hospital, parked my car perfectly between the lines and everything, like it wasn't a rush. As soon as I walked through the emergency room doors, I collapsed and went into cardiac arrest. A code blue was called. They came out to resuscitate me. They got me back, and then I coded again. And then they brought me back again, put a stent in my heart, and then flew me to Riverside Hospital here in Columbus. They said that when we arrived, they saw that I was fighting, and they said my eyes opened for a little bit, and it would go down. And they said that since I was fighting, they wanted to fight with me because, I apparently wanted to be here. So they resuscitated me again. I coded. They resuscitated me again. And then they called my family in Chicago. Because majority of my family's in Chicago. My children and their mom and some of her family was here. So they called my family in Chicago and said, someone need to get here. He's not doing well. And this is like, I want to say early morning, probably like 3, 4 in the morning, something like that. And they said, what is going on? They was like, someone need to get here. He's not looking good. He's, went to cardiac arrest. They called my kids and the family that was here and told them that I wasn't looking good and everything. And then when, then they hung up talking to them, my family's on their way here from Chicago. And they say about 45 minutes later, the doctors called back while they was on their way and said that we're sorry, it's too late. He didn't make it. Yeah, but they still kept coming. They still kept coming. And the doctors said that there was so many people in the waiting room, and the waiting room's pretty big. They thought that everybody was there for different people and stuff, but they said that everybody that was in that waiting room was there for me. And it's I want to say a humbling experience to know that many people cared about me, But when my mama finally made it, she got off the elevator. As soon as she got off the elevator, my mom was like, okay, where's my baby? And one of my kids approached and said, it's too late. He's been gone all day. And she reacted as you would think a mother would react. Fell to her knees and just wanted to see me, and she came in and saw me. It was a challenging time for the family, as one could expect.
I can imagine, but I didn't hear that part of the story in your other interviews. That the waiting room was so full that people thought it was for other people and various different patients, but all those people were there for you. So you were covered in love, and I imagine lots of prayer
Oh man.
So
Yeah.
I mean, you already know what that is. I mean, miracles happen in environments like that.
Yeah, I was so grateful and humble for it. You know, and some of those people that was in the waiting room was some of my coworkers. You know, from Coca-Cola. My supervisor, the regional supervisor, was there, and they had got the word when I passed away. So when they got the word too, of course they came up there to see me. But also according to protocol, you know, with corporations, is that you have to start the process of the insurance.
Right.
So I still have it. They sent the letter to my parents from the insurance. It was a condolences letter from Coca-Cola. You know, and I still have that letter to this day. It said, we were notified of the death of your loved one. You know, and just to look at it, it's almost eerie. You know what I'm saying?
I can imagine. I actually saw a copy of it from the other show, and wow, just to see a letter like that saying that, hey, we're sorry to hear about the death of your loved one, and they're talking about you. And then your poor daughter, how old was she when she had to make that difficult decision as to whether or not to pull the plug, basically?
Oh, man, my daughter, I believe she was 18, so she was like my next of kin. Yeah, and when she was in the room, and she had to make that decision, she looked up at my mom and she told the doctor, she said, not yet. He's still in there. And the doctors and my mom looked at her, they said, baby, he's gone. He's been gone all day. And she insisted. She said, no, not yet. Please wait. He's still in there. And she proceeded to wrap her arms around my mom and look up at her and was crying. She was like, I don't want to do this. Sorry. I don't want to do this, Grandma. And she was like, baby, it's up to you. And she was like, wait, just wait. And the doctor was like, we don't know why, because he's already gone, you know, because my organs had already shut down. My heart had already shut down. You know, the only thing that was keeping my body active was, I believe, the ventilator for my lungs, but my heart wasn't pumping. You know, it had already stopped. You know, so as you can, you know, those who know more, a little bit about the medical thing, is that if your blood is not pumping directly carrying oxygen to your brain, you're going to have some issues.
Right.
And my heart had already stopped, and it has been gone for the whole day. You know, so I was just connected with tubes. My body started to swell. I started, hopefully this offends some people, but there was blood coming from the orifices of my eyes. You know, my skin started to crack. And they still gave my daughter time. They still waited. You know, and when they said, okay, we'll wait, even though it was over, they went to my house and started cleaning out my house. And I'm telling you, I don't know if it's just black people or it's people in general, but when they got to my house, they literally started everything. You know, I don't know where half the stuff is anymore. but if memorial plans were being made, they were scheduling a memorial and everything. They started again, you know, deciding who was going to get what, who was going to get this and stuff. And in the meantime, I thought I was sleeping. You know, I didn't think I was deceased. I thought I was sleeping. You know, it was, what's the word I'm looking for?
You thought you were sleeping and you were in another galaxy somewhere.
Man, let me tell you, it was so calm, so peaceful. You know, I remember I was going down this tunnel. And in this tunnel, the tunnel was literally cylindrical. And it was amber in color. And when you hear amber, that doesn't mean I was in hell, people. You know, so it was cylindrical, and there were hands and people reaching out for me, or just reaching out as if they were reaching out for help. You know, I didn't feel bad. I didn't feel any kind of way. I just went with it, went through the tunnel, and next thing you know, I'm on the highway, which is the hospital is right off the highway. And I'm on that highway, and it was gloomy. It was dark, and that's when everything happened, but it was gloomy and dark. I saw the street lights and everything, and then next thing you know, I'm at this landmark, and what they consider the brewery district on Front Street, downtown Columbus. And I saw this one of the structures that was in front of like a Kroger and right between these apartments. And I'm just observing, seeing these things. And then it was just like that, snap at a finger, I'm in space. No in between or anything. It was just like that. So I'm in space, and when I'm in space, the not irony, but I knew I still existed. I was not afraid. I was looking for air or none of that. I didn't have any form, but I knew I still existed. I was aware that I was part of everything. I was just existing, And then I looked in front of me, and it was this planet, huge planet, and I can't say it was Earth, but it was Earth-like. And coming from it was like a tree of energy protruding from the top. It wasn't like the gravitational field like people say is going in and out and stuff like that. It was literally in the form of a tree coming off the top of it, but the energy was going in and out, circulating in and out of the planet throughout the tree and back into the planet. Really pretty sight. And I looked to my left, I observed to my left, and then I saw like a swirl of stars. You would think it's like almost like a portal, but like a swirl of stars. I didn't think anything of it. Again, I saw it, and it wasn't 2 years later. I was just online looking, and it resembled the Andromeda Galaxy. So I was like, I guess that was the Andromeda Galaxy, But I heard my name being called from like the right. And I looked, again, it was dark. I didn't see anything, didn't observe anything. I looked at the planet. I looked at the swirling stars again. I looked at the planet again as if I'm like contemplating, am I going to go towards the stars? Saying to myself, am I going to go towards it? But then it's almost as if something was like, okay, I'm not going to go towards the stars. And then next thing you know, black again. And then I'm opening up my eyes I don't know what time in between, but when I did finally open my eyes, I noticed my mom and the doctor standing by my bed, and they're saying, do you know where you are? And I'm like, I'm hooked up to tubes and everything, and I couldn't say anything, but they said, you're in the hospital. They said you died, but we got you back. And again, I couldn't respond because I'm hooked up to tubes, but I noticed energy around my mom, and I knew that energy to be love. And this may seem, I'm going to say, funny to hear for some people, but I knew that energy to be love. And because of where I just was, I recognized it as love because I was introduced to love in that space where I was. I knew now that energy was not that love was not an emotion, not a feeling, that love was an entity. Love lives. It has a life. It exists. She, and I say she because love has like, I want to say a feminine attribute, a feminine energy to it. And I knew it as love, and love can exist in all places at all times, with whomever she chooses and whomever chooses her. She doesn't discriminate, but knowing that that was love and that love is an entity, it stuck with me,
That was the dominant feeling that you felt when you were on that other side.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, wow.
Yeah, it was I would say it was peaceful, and that feeling, it was, I would say, divine, and it was just amazing.
Was there any negotiation of, I love this so much, I want to stay here, do I have to go back? Was there any of that?
I think that when I looked at this world of stars is when I believe it was like when I was contemplating, do I want to go towards those stars or do I want to go back? And at least at period, I chose the back part. But one day, I would open my eyes every now and then, and I would see somebody different in my room. Like my guy, him and his wife and the kids and my kids and everything at the end of my bed. Just there to support me. And it was one day when I opened my eyes a lot longer, and on television, it was around election time, and all I saw was like a bunch of hate. It was a bunch of nastiness. It was fighting. It felt really bad to the point to where I got teary-eyed, and I asked myself, what did I come back to? Why did I come back to this? This is chaos, But I felt everything now. I was at peace. I had no worry, no doubt, no fear, no questions to even why I was there. I was just here, existing, and it felt really, really good and amazing. I would say, this may sound morbid again, but it was the best rest I ever had in my life.
A lot of people, when they have these experiences, they come back and they talked about having like this heightened sense of perception or some type of special gift or anything. Did you come back with any type of different abilities or gifts or perceptions that you didn't have before?
Well, when I came back, at first, I could say I was wondering, like, what did I come back to? But it felt like this place was the dream, and where I was reality. So it felt almost like out of place where I was. I felt everything. I felt every sorrow someone had, I felt energy really, really strong. And I would say it hurt, but it was sad. There was a lot of sad energy going around, and I felt it. And when I left the hospital, I was in the hospital, I think I left the hospital like November. I went in like August. And everything that I was looking at, it's like I saw everything for the first time. It's as if I had never saw them before. The trees, the buses, the clouds, the planes, everything was weird, out of place. And I was just here. I was just going along for the ride. But then I would say probably a year later, 2017, about 2017, no, not even a year later, it was like maybe a couple of months later, 2017, I officially lost my home, officially lost my job, and I had to start completely over, learn how to walk, talk, and everything. And during this process, again, I'm tired, if that make any sense. Still feeling uncomfortable, not knowing what to take of what was going on, and just trying to go through it. So, like, when I'm not feeling well, it'll happen for a little bit, but then I'll go back to another level of not feeling well, if that makes sense, a lesser level. But then I start then one day, and I had that not feeling well, that more elevated of not feeling well, I would start feeling back to like even balance, and then something would happen. I think it was the Las Vegas shooting. And when it happened, I didn't put two and two together. I'm just like, that's sad, I had a sad feeling that that happened. So as time goes on, I would have that elevated sadness again, the elevated feeling of being drained and sad and not knowing what's happening. And then when I started to level out again, then it was a train derailment in Washington State, where I think someone passed away, but it was a train derailment. So I'm like, okay, this is getting a little freaky, but maybe it's just like a coincidence.
Mm-hmm.
So I tried to keep an eye on it. I tried to pay attention to it to see if maybe this just was a coincidence. But then the more I would go and I would have these feelings, it just never failed that shortly afterwards, a bad event would happen in the world. And I think I don't know exactly what date that is, because traumatic brain injury is one of the things that I got after that.
Mm-hmm.
But on social media one day, on Facebook, I had got this feeling again, and then I put it on Facebook, on my Facebook post, and I said, I said something is going to happen. Something is going to happen that's going to affect not just here, but it's going to affect the entire world. I don't know what it is, but it's sad, and something's going to happen. And the next day, the George Floyd incident happened. So I was like, oh, okay, this is not a coincidence. What do you do with this? Why do I have this? Is there a purpose? And I couldn't find a purpose. So it would just happen, and I would pray to the Creator and be like, okay, this is a bit much for me, because I don't know what to do with this, because I already now have so much going on with my body as after effect of what happened. I have traumatic brain injury. I had, and medically, when I came back, when they found my heartbeat, I think I skipped over that. I'm sorry. But when they found my heartbeat the next day and called my family and told them I made it, they found a faint heartbeat, but only 20-something% chance of survival. They didn't know what was going to happen. They thought it was going to be a vegetable. Because, and my family said, that's okay, keep on anyway. So when I was in that medically induced coma, they put me on a machine called the ECMO machine. I guess to pump the blood throughout your body.
Yes.
So when I was on the ECMO machine, I had 26 strokes while I was on the ECMO machine. So as a result of those strokes, the strokes was like throughout my brain, and a lot of them was in my cerebellum, where I have chronic vertigo, where no meclizine and no medicine or anything could help. That is a specialist to confirm that. So I had this chronic vertigo every day where I'm nauseous. I had insomnia where I couldn't sleep, because the spirit don't need any sleep. And I was more tied to the spirit world. So I couldn't sleep for years. And then I was exerting a lot of energy, because even though my spirit couldn't sleep, my body we over here, we still need some rest. So I'm not feeling well all the time, nauseous, my body is tired and everything. And because of this, I was like, man, I appreciate this gift, this is what it is, but please take it away from me, because it's too much. Because I just don't feel good every day, and to jump up and then to have my level of not feeling well jump up so much, so high, just so I can have these visions, I was like, just take it away. And I stopped having them for a while. And then when I felt my ego was coming in again, it was like, okay, you're good now. Yeah, you can handle some more now. So I was like, okay. All right, God. I prayed to him. Say, give it back to me. I think I got it this time. What did I say that for? One of the places I go to meditate is my son-in-law's, my stepson's closet. Uh-huh. It just so happened that the darkness and the quietness when you meditate is something different about that.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So when I'm in his closet, I'm having this deep meditation, and these visions just started coming like really clear. All this, I had this vision of, I was saying, it was like a bunch of these soldiers were fighting each other. They had like red stripes, like a red strip in their hat, and they had them green, but they were fighting each other. And I don't know why they fighting. I don't know why they battling, but they used to be part of each other. Why are they fighting each other? And I had that vision, and it was very clear. So I came out the closet, and I told my wife, I said, you know what? I just had this strange vision that there's these soldiers just fighting each other. They had on these red bands in their hat, but they were just fighting, warring. I don't know why. She said, well, I don't know, you know. And shortly after that, Russia invaded Ukraine. And I was like, whoa. And my wife said something. I was like, you know what? I said, this is what that vision was about, because at one point in time, the Ukraine was part of Russia. And it just so happened that these guys are fighting. I was like, this is not a coincidence anymore. These things are real. And then I had a couple of more, and then a couple of more, and to the point to where I just kind of started ignoring it, because it was becoming too much for me, you know, to have to balance just staying on my feet, now balance getting these visions and maybe sharing them or not. I just stopped paying attention to them. You know, I felt it wasn't serving me because I didn't understand, you know.
And when did you start doing the work to put all of this in book form and to start, you know, talking about what you experienced? When did you start that work?
After my incident happened, I was released, I believe, in November of 2017, and my brother, one of my guys, I call him my brother again, he had a benefit for me, you know, for people to, you know, speak with me, ask questions, and ways that they can donate to help me and everything, because everything had happened. And I want to say afterwards, everybody would say, man, you are such an inspiration. People would tell me how I inspired them, how I helped them believe in God again and faith and everything. And I was humbled by it, but I was just grateful to be here. I didn't feel any kind of way. I was just grateful to be here. But then 2017, people just kept saying it. So you should write a book. And I was like, nah, I don't want to write a book. I'm just happy. I'm just humbled to be here. You know, and then I want to say late 2017, early 2018, I started writing it. You know, and I wrote it. I had to get someone to edit it, and it was just so ironic because I had just had 26 strokes, but yet I remembered a lot of stuff from my past. You know, I remembered these things, so I wrote my life, and I self-published it in, say, 2019. Self-published it, and I'm glad I did it. You know, it was kind of therapeutic, and I was glad that I was able, and my story was able to inspire other people, you know, to keep going, to know that there is a creator, there is something other than us. There's a reason why we're here. You know, and to, even when times look rough, even when they look bleak, to still have faith and still remain optimistic that things will get better, even when you still don't see it yet. And I believe that message in that book helped, and again, it made me feel it humbled, of course, but I was grateful that I did write it.
I'm grateful that you wrote it. I tell people all the time, there's a book in all of us, and particularly with what you've been through and lived through, that's a story that's going to inspire a lot of people. That's one of the reasons why I was so excited about having you on. NDE aside, you just have an inspiring story overall. Just your countenance, the way you are so positive. You know, you don't look like what you've lived through. So, I mean, that's a cliche saying, but you really do bring that to life in a different way. You definitely don't look like what you've been through.
Yeah,
I want to talk about your website too. I looked at your website last night. You have I guess it's a meditation and aromatherapy type business called Daleth Sanctuary. Can you tell us about that? Because I think it's really interesting.
Sure. When I left the hospital some months, I would say years later, I had it upon my heart and my spirit because everything that I was doing was clear. It was not second guessed. Everything came clear. It was organic. It was it was spiritual. And I was like, I want to create something to help people learn to meditate and meditate to experience that peace and level of peace that I have. Because when people ask me what it was like, I would tell them the best way I could explain it to them was that peace and that zen that you have, I've only felt that same peace of zen when I was in deep meditation. Mm. And I would say, and because I would say that, I was like, you don't have to die to get that peace. I don't recommend it. but I was like, I want to create a place for people to learn how to meditate or to experience meditation and enjoy aromatherapy in a process to help them on their journey. So I decided, I want to create a place to do that. I want an actual physical place. But because I was just fired or laid off from my job because of my health and lost everything physically, I had no money. And everywhere I go, they would say, well, this is going to cost this much. That's going to cost that much. Now you don't have this, so you don't have any credit and everything. So it discouraged me a little bit. But I said, okay, I got to find another way to help people meditate and learn how to meditate. So one day I woke up and this symbol came to mind. And the symbol was like a sun, or a spear in the background, a half a spear, and a triangle in the middle with ancient Phoenician letters for Yah, Yod Hey, in the middle of it. Mm-hmm. And the word Daleth, aromatherapy and meditation, came. And the Yod Hey in the middle of the triangle means Yah, or God. And the triangle, the Hebrew word for triangle is Daleth, and the symbol is a triangle, and it means door. So I wanted to create a doorway to God using meditation and aromatherapy. So I said, I'm going to create something. So I decided to do a nonprofit. So I had to do a nonprofit, get the money so I can build it. Couldn't get that. I found that nonprofit is a cutthroat world,
Very much so, yes.
So I had to step it down again. I kind of kept trying to think of ways. So the last thing that came was like, okay, I'll just create a directory. I create a directory of products and services that will help people meditate, help people learn how to meditate, whether it be YouTube or devices. And that aromatherapy, candles, essential oils, incense, I would create a place where people can find these things if they need it to help on their journey. So that's where I created the website so to help them on their journey. It's still I want to say it's a rough draft for me because every day I have ideas, but I created that just to help people on their journey. And I implore people to use it whenever you can because I think it's a good tool.
It's definitely a good tool. I'm actually looking at it now. It's DalethSanctuary.com, and it has a host of different things, aromatherapy accessories, bath and body things. Mm-hmm. So definitely check that out. I was also seeing where, I don't know if I saw this on another interview or I read it somewhere, but you were at one point doing hospice volunteering. Is that something that you're still involved with?
I am not. I used when I started hospice volunteering for Ohio Health. Of course, it was to help people who were about to make that transition, to give them comfort, to let them know there was nothing to be afraid about, nothing to be be scared about, that everything was okay, and that for some of them, those who reached that age, that it was more of a badge of honor, that you get to go home and actually be away from all this chaos, And the more I started doing it, my health kind of started taking more changes where I would talk to someone and I would get lightheaded and then I'm done. And then sometimes it would be on about 10, 15 minutes. And I would go to my car and I would sit in my car for almost a half an hour, if not an hour, so I can stabilize just to drive home. you know.
Yeah.
So I was like, I gotta adjust this. And then we got pregnant with my wife now got pregnant with my youngest daughter, and since she was now here, it's like I couldn't go back to it for health reasons, and now I gotta keep eye on this little one who before her, my youngest was 18.
There's an interesting story about how you proposed to your wife. We're at the top of the hour, but can you just tell us briefly how you all came to be engaged? I think that's something else.
Yeah, man. Cassie, my wife, she's the one who I just started dating in December of 2015. And we got serious in 2016, and when it happened, she worked at the same hospital, Riverside, where I was at. And my son, she had just came in from work, and my son, Mickey, my youngest, called her and said, Dad died. So she rushed right back out the door to the hospital where I was at. And she was there. She stayed there. She was there every day. Her and my sister-in-law, they were there every day. And one day, again, I opened my eyes, and she was holding my hand, and she was looking down at me. She was saying something. But then I looked over it again, and then I got tubes in my throat and everything, a trach, and I couldn't say anything. But I looked back over, and I'm like, she's still here? You know, like, most women be like, oh, no, I got to go. Eat crate. You know, this is too much. You know, but she was still here, and I looked at her. Then I looked back in front of me again. My eyes welled up, and then something said, do it. And I turned over, and I said, I mouthed it. I said, will you marry me? And she read the lips. She read the words that were coming out of my mouth, and she said yes. And we got proposed. I proposed in the hospital. We got engaged in the hospital, and she's been there ever since. She helped me back to health. You know, she was at every therapy appointment. She was rough at times, and I didn't appreciate that roughness at times, you know, but she helped me. She was, you know, she had my back, and she still has my back, and I was grateful for her, and that's why when I asked her to marry me, I know the divine reason and divine purpose, and it was from a good place that this was the person who I was supposed to be with.
I love that. That's the most beautiful part of the story. Shout out to Cassie. I mean, talk about bragging rights. You can go to your girlfriend and say, my man proposed to me from his hospital bed, his deathbed, basically. Yeah, I mean, how could you not say yes to that?
I know, right? It's like till death. Till death do us part, and we didn't even get married yet. You just know me.
Wow, she took that seriously. Man, that's
exactly.
Such a beautiful story, man. Beautiful story. Listen, I want to thank you so much for just trusting me with this very personal story that you've had, and for reminding everybody that, you know, like it says in your book, Second Chances, is, you know, it's not only about coming back from death. Sometimes it's that moment where we finally decide to listen and to slow down and just be more deliberate about loving life and living life more fully and living with intention. Yeah. So before I let you go, listen, I want to give you one last final word. If someone listening out there is exhausted or unwell, or they're feeling like they're, I don't know, disconnected from what matters, or they just are postponing the life and the things that they know they should be doing, what do you want to say to them tonight? Any last remarks?
Yeah, I would say love, and it's not love in the sense of emotion. I would say learn to love yourself, and love the process. Everything that happens in your life, even if it seems bad and you can't get through it, just keep at it, because it will give you the strength you need to fight the next battle. And as long as we're on this earth, there is going to be another battle that you will be, that you will encounter. But you got to stay optimistic, even when it doesn't look like you should be. And love yourself, love others as you love yourself, and don't lust each other, don't desire each other, don't have, you want, what's the word I'm looking for? Don't just want to be with somebody. Learn to love. When you learn to love yourself, it'll be easier for you to love someone else, because the Creator is love. And love is part of the Creator, and it's the reason why we're still here. The sun loves this job. That's why he do it. The sun loves it. Every celestial body in the universe do what it do based off of love, and it doesn't ask questions. And we shouldn't either. Just love and continue loving and learning love and finding love in your life. Everybody, including yourself and your spirit, will be grateful for it.
Amen. Well said, Jay. Again, thank you so much for joining me tonight. And to everybody that's listening around the world, listen, thank you for spending this hour with us, a little over an hour. This has been L.J. Martin and Dr. Andre Jerry, and this has been Live with Dr. Andre Jerry. Until next time, everybody, take care of yourselves, take care of the people you love, and good night, everybody.
Thank you. Good night, everyone. Love you all.